Hi, everyone, and welcome to the experience. I have a special guest, a dear friend of mine for, I don't know, 25 plus years, Ranya Anabtawi, and she is a yoga goddess. And among many other things, she's also a healing practitioner. I'm going to let her talk about her amazing work and what's going on in her life. But we also are just here to chat about her experience with life and consciousness and being a human in this spiritual experience of life. So, welcome, Ranya.
Thank you, Nora. I'm so glad we're finally doing this. It's so exciting to be here. I know
Finally.
we've talked about it for a while, right? I don't even know. I'm like, oh, I want to go on your show. We got to do that.
I know, and it
So
almost didn't happen today, but thank goodness we got it happening. And it's just one of those things. So what I like to think about too, when I'm doing the show, when there's stuff going down for me, I'm just assuming that there's stuff going down for other people. And Saturn is retrograde, so things can get a little funky and things are just funky in the world. So we're just going to shake it off and bring this important information out there because people need to know about you. And I think the evolving of yoga and bringing in your special take on it, your artistry, bringing that into training people in what is called empathic yoga. So just so people know, feel free, Rania, to share a little bit about what you're about, what just give them some of your special sauce.
special sauce. One of the things that I like that you said, Nora, was the artistry of yoga. It really is an art form, and I feel like I get to always be creating something with yoga. When I first got my Yoda certification,
Yoda,
and
that's a
that's
great
interesting.
Freudian.
What is that about?
Empathic Yoda is
I like
infused in your empathic yoga.
I always like what Yoda says. I think I have a little button and it says, what does it say? It says, um, there is no try,
I
only
only do.
do. Right.
That's how this show is happening today. There is no trying to make it happen. We are doing it.
I many times, but before doing something like this, or when I did my webinar last week, I'm like, okay, I'm not ready. I should postpone it. I need to do it another time. And it's like, I think that's just it, is we got to just jump in. We got to just jump in. And I'm glad we're jumping in today, Nora. So thank you.
Totally. The best things happen when we just go for it, or the most messed up things happen. But that's what it is, being human in this crazy experience. And it's like, what I am always asking people is, what do you want? What do you want to happen in your life? And I think people do want action, and this is some action, baby.
This is
So,
some action. This is some action. And even just from a few months ago, I feel like there's been a lot of action in my life. So yeah, the artistry of yoga. One of the things that surprises people when I tell them a little bit about what I used to do before I was a yoga teacher. We like to meet people in the present moment. It's like, oh, you're a yoga teacher. That means you've always been a yoga teacher. Well, no.
you came out of the womb like
I am a yoga teacher. I knew what I wanted to be when I was a kid, though. I always wanted to be an artist. And maybe that was in my little kid mind. Maybe that meant like having a brush and an easel and doing that. But I definitely went the artist path. It wasn't so much in fine art or in painting, but it was in theater and it was in lighting. And when I tell people, oh, I used to be a lighting designer, and they're like, what, like, what? You did what? And I'm like, yes, I lit musicals and operas and dance and music. And so it's fun to be able to, talk about how I come from a background in art, and specifically in design, and how yoga is no different. I come from a background of design and art in yoga. And every time I get on the mat and every time I teach, it's an artistic endeavor, but what I've noticed, especially now that I've been teaching for 15 years, is that it's what how can I put this? It's not really planned. I mean, I think about it, right? I think about what I'm gonna roughly what I'm gonna do, but I certainly don't have it all written down perfectly for every move and everything I'm gonna say, or even how I'm gonna lead a meditation. I just that stuff comes from the creation source. That's what art is, right? It's in the moment. It's in that I'm just gonna channel. Absolutely starts to be a channeling work at that point. Yeah.
I always wondered about that because I've, going to yoga classes or doing your yoga classes. I'm thinking, so are they like sitting before class, making a like plan of what's unfolding? And that's cool. You're like, no. Did you do that when you first started? Do you think?
Oh my God. When I first started, I was so nervous and I had my little notes and I would have my notes next to me on the mat and I would have the kind of the play by play. Absolutely. Yeah. As a newer teacher, I didn't have the confidence to really just know that my body would lead it and my mind would lead it. And now 15 years under my belt, yeah, now I can do that. Now I
So,
can
well,
do that.
maybe that speaks to other yoga instructors who may be starting out or people who feel nervous about what it is to be in that artist space. Because I would say that my hypnotherapy is very similar, like start on script and then as you evolve as a practitioner, it just becomes this spontaneous unfolding. And you're saying similar. I mean, and I'll just say this too, like the work that you do is so much, there's so much infused in your yoga and you're also bringing other elements in. So I want to make sure that we talk about that too. But yeah, the connecting with your inner channel so that you can be, I would say, connected to your soul through your work.
Yeah, beautifully said. Yeah, I like that very much. Something that came up when you were saying that too was oh god, there's this thing that happens, I think for most yoga teachers, we have other lives, we have other professions, and then there's this calling, right? There's this calling to kind of step into the unknown. I'm sorry, I think I have my these little beeping sounds. I think I have
No,
my
they're not coming through. They're not,
oh
I'm not
good.
hearing them. No. Yeah.
My email is beeping. So good. I'm
Oh,
glad you're not
yeah.
hearing it.
No.
Okay. Um so there's this moment I think for most yoga teachers' lives, unless they've, I don't know, grew up with yoga and always had that free spirit, where we have to kind of detach from the societal norms of what we're supposed to do, right? So I was an admin assistant for many years and I felt like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. And I've got the job security and I've got the
You're a
benefits and
damn
I've got
good one. I remember. You're like,
I got that spreadsheet. I got
yeah.
that
I
email.
got you.
I got
You were working for people and you were so hooking them up. I remember that.
yeah, and boy, did that help me. It's always I'm glad it's something I did, right? And it's helping me now in my own business. But it's this thing where, I just knew somewhere, somehow, sometime I would eventually be a yoga teacher. I didn't know how to connect the dots. I actually didn't need to connect the dots. So I trusted, I let go, I surrendered. It was time to just leave my golden handcuffs and my really good government job and everyone that I worked with is like, what are you doing? What, you only have 14 more years left before you could collect your retirement. And I said, 14 years? No, thank you. No, thank you. And so it was just that leap of faith. And that really is, I think, ultimately what starts any yoga teacher's journey is you have that leap of faith and then it just keeps building. So I guess you could say the unscripted yoga that I teach now is that leap of faith.
Mhm.
I don't need to have a roadmap. It
Yeah.
comes. It
Yeah.
comes.
That's
Yeah.
such a huge thing, I think, in general. And I think entrepreneurs in general, artists in general, anybody who's going from like, these are the rules, these are the established rules, and you're not to deviate, but then there's this inner calling that's like, but my soul has to do it this way, you know? And I know for me, I could, like, I try to do it the way that everybody said I was supposed to do it. And it didn't work for me, you know, like from like, you know, how I learned in school to like what would come out of my mouth. And people are just like, what are you talking about? It's just like, I had to, you know, come up with something else. But there's that, I think that's a very key space of exploration within all of us, is that trust piece. Because I know there are people who are like, I can't leave the sanctity of the structure. It's just not who I am. It feels very uncomfortable. The instability of it is not how I'm wired. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. But for all the people who are not, who are like, the structure is strangling me, like I am boxed by this structure. And like COVID too, right? Like so much has happened because we've had to sort of jump into that like unknown zone. And I think a lot of people are having this awareness, and you went, I was right there with you going through that transition when you were making that transition in your life.
Yeah.
And it was so cool to watch. And I guess the reason I'm mentioning it is because I want to appeal to the people who are being drawn to your work, who are being drawn to this conversation, that it's doable. It's doable.
Absolutely, it's doable. I was talking to a friend of mine. She's a newer friend, and we have a mutual friend in common. And my friend was saying something to our mutual friend, and she gave me a really nice compliment. She said, "Oh yeah, that Ranya, she always knows how to land on her feet." And I so to give you some background, I know Nora knows this, but for you, the folks that are watching, I mean, the background on that is 2 years ago after COVID hit. It was probably 6 months after COVID. So March, March of 2020. And in September, I left my house in California of 17 years, and I just took off. And I said, I do not belong here anymore. And just the energy is not right for me. And I need to make a change. And I made a huge change. I sold almost everything that I had, and I just put it in what I could in my car, in a van, and I took off. And I ended up, after a little bit of figuring out where I needed to be after staying at my dad's house for a few months, I figured out that I wanted to be in Montana. And so just knowing one friend, a couple of friends, and then moving up here, it was a big change for me. It was a big change, but I took that risk. And I owe it to the big step that I took when I first really disengaged from societal norms and decided that I'm going to be a yoga teacher. And I don't know what else I'm going to do, but that's what I'm going to do. So then
So awesome.
it propelled me into these like into these risks, into these changes, into these new places. And I get that too, Nora, when people ask me about my Scotland retreat. That was something I planned in 2020, and I had to wait, and now it's finally happening in 2 months.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. Tell people about your Scotland retreat. Are you booked up? You can't, you're any more slots?
I was booked since February, and it's very common. And I guess I was surprised, but not surprised, but somebody had to drop out just a couple weeks ago because of medical reasons. And so now I actually have one spot left, and it's killing me because I know there's going to be the perfect person out there who wants to jump in.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's in
Maybe
August.
they'll hear it right now. Yeah.
Yes, everyone out there, it's in August. It's August 15th through the 21st. So if you're going to come all the way to Scotland, you want to come a day early for jet lag and the time change, of course. So you can get there on the 14th, make your way over there on the 14th, and make your way over to the lodge. It's in the Scottish Lowlands. It's about 2 hours outside of Edinburgh, and it's this beautiful retreat center where they practice shamanism of all things in Scotland. They practice shamanism at this center. They have been for the last 20 years. So it's
Cool.
got some good juju. It's got some good juju, yeah. And yeah, it's gonna be
What are you
yoga.
gonna do? Yeah.
What are we doing? What are we
Yeah,
doing?
you die. Clearly yoga.
Clearly yoga. So a typical day is meditation in the morning, then eat some yummy vegetarian food, then go for a hike, maybe have some alone time, some free time, and then yoga in the middle of the day, and then yoga in the afternoon. And then if we're not at the lodge all day, just retreating and having stillness and being in the practice, then we'll be venturing out on some tours. I am a huge Outlander fan, both of the books and the show, and I've fashioned some of this time to check out the filming sites of the show. So we'll
Oh, cool.
see Castle Learch and Lallybroch and all those places that if you're an Outlander fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So
Yeah.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Yes.
Where maybe Jamie will drop by.
Sam Hewen.
Yeah.
Yes. If only all the Scottish men looked like Sam Hewen.
Oh my gosh. Wow. What water was his parents drinking? That's so cool. I wish can be a tricky time, but so we're just sending the message out to the perfect person who's like, oh my gosh, that is I have to do it thing. And so, help people understand what empathic yoga is, because I think it's really a special interpretation of yoga.
Mm. Yeah, I was talking to Turtle the other day. In fact, it was this. We were staying at a friend's house, and we're
And
sleeping on one of
Turtle's your
those.
partner.
Turtle's my partner. Yeah, and we were sleeping on one of those pull out couch beds. So those aren't terribly comfortable. But we ended up waking up around, I don't know, it must have been like 3 a.m. or something, and we had like philosophy talk for like an hour. I love that time of day because or night or whatever you want to call it. It's just so beautifully quiet. The world isn't even woken up yet. The sun isn't even up yet. And it's this really potent time for, I don't know, deep thought, deep thinking. At least that's where we're going. And we were talking about all kinds of things, but something that really landed for me was how we live. The main attraction is distraction. We live in distraction. We feed off distraction, the constant need to instant message somebody, to reply to those emails, to watch that silly TikTok video, whatever. It's this constant stream of information, and it puts our brains in this mode, right? This scattered and fractured mode. And I realized, all my life, I mean, I've been practicing yoga for 25 years, and a majority of my life I have chosen to move into stillness, to move into the subtle, to move into what's on the inside. What are we doing to remove ourselves from distraction? And now it's all really culminating and synergistically coming together in what I do as a teacher, starting as more of a vinyasa teacher and a hatha teacher, and loving the principles of yoga and the philosophies of yoga and the spiritual path of yoga, but also wanting to dive into, and believe me, you get there. I think if you do it long enough, there's an automatic spiritual component. I think anyone who does enough yoga will understand what I'm talking about. But then it gets into this layer of, so what I do is I do yoga, but I don't do the bendy, stretchy yoga anymore. I certainly still like to do it, but what I teach is restorative yoga. So what is that? Well, it's like nap time yoga, I like to call it. And it's it's a bunch of laying down, right? And it's a bunch of laying down
It's
in
so
certain
yummy. Restorative is so yummy. It's like, I'm going to yoga.
Exactly. Excuse me. Yeah, and so the body is propped up in specific ways so that it feels weightless, and in that weightless state, there is healing. So the practice of restorative yoga is the practice of surrender, is the practice of letting go. So that's the ultimate antithesis to distraction. We're trying to get into the least amount of distraction. And the way to get there is you're softening into the shape, because you hold the poses for about 20 minutes or sometimes longer. Is how can you tune into what's going on inside? How can you tune into this, right? How can you tune into this and tune out of this? Because this is the thing that we're constantly
It's
playing
always
with.
trying to run the show.
It's
Yeah.
always trying to run the
Like,
show.
come on, we got to run the show.
Yeah, there's a show going on. You don't want to miss it. There's this giant stream of information that's constantly being bombarded into your brain. So, hey, let's play. So it's, for some people, that can be a little daunting. It can be a little intense, but for the most part, and most people who experience it even for their first time walk away with it, with this feeling of tranquility. Yeah.
That's so
Yeah, so
cool.
that's one little piece. Okay.
Yeah.
So what is empathic yoga? Yeah, and I seem to have this little tickle I need to get rid of here.
Throat chakra.
It's beaming. It's expressing right now.
Here we
sure.
go.
So I kind of randomly got into Reiki healing. I was teaching a restorative yoga class at this gym I used to teach at, and one of the most favorite things that I get to do is touch my students. So I'm kind of tucking them in and covering them with blankets and doing all these things that feels like a mother tucking in her child almost.
You have such a special touch. I mean, I'll speak to that when on the other side of this, but yeah.
Thank you. Goodness. I still have this tickle. Yeah, so let me just take a breath here. All right.
Why don't I say it now? So I remember it's one of the times I came out to see you in California, and we were doing some yoga at your place, and I think you were contemplating doing Reiki, or maybe you had already had, like, there was it was sort of this time where you were like, I'm thinking of getting more into energy healing. And I was like, cool. And you were helping me. I don't even remember. It's just, you were like tucking me in, and I think you were rubbing my, like, under my neck or something, just like stretching it out. And I think I passed out. I think I just totally fell asleep, and I was just like, yeah, you've got special energy flowing through you. Definitely makes sense to go in that direction.
I don't know if you remember this, but when I came to Hawaii, when you were living in Hawaii, and you put me through my first hypnotherapy session with you, you had just gotten, certified, and you were practicing, and you were super excited about it. And I finally was able to come out, and it was a rough time in my life. It was in 2012, and I had just gone through a breakup, and I needed some healing. The island was healing, and your therapy was really healing. And I had these incredible visions. And one of them was this angel was standing above me, and I think it was one of my guides. It was one of my guides, and they were just tower. It was such a beautiful angel, like just 10 feet above me, and I'm laying on this massage table, and the angel's looking down on me, and they have these hands, and these hands are coming down towards me, and they're these giant hands, and inside the hands were these infinity symbols.
Oh yeah.
Right. And it was like they were gifting me, or in some ways maybe even like reminding
Mhm.
me of,
Mhm.
hey lady,
Mhm.
you have some infinity symbols in your hands. And it was at that point I really realized, like, okay, there's some healing here that I can tap into. So, like fast forward, I don't know, 4 or 5 years later, and I'm in this yoga class. I'm just doing my thing, tucking people in, doing the little neck thing, massaging their feet, just giving them some love. And this woman comes up to me after class, and I was new to teaching this class, so I didn't know a lot of people. So she comes up to me and she's like, "Are you doing Reiki on us when you touch us?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know, maybe." Like, I'm
I bet
focused,
so many people can relate to this, people who haven't officially been trained, in a modality.
People haven't. And I think
Yeah.
more and more people, more and more souls on this planet are getting tuned in, and like naturally attuned to
Yeah.
Reiki. So
Yeah.
so she says, okay, you're doing Reiki. I said, oh, okay, thank you very much. And then the next day or the next week, I teach the class again, and she brings her friend who is a Reiki master, and they were in cahoots, like, okay, check it out. Come to the class, lady, and see how Ranya does. And and at that point,
See what Ranya is doing. What's
see
she
what Ranya is,
doing? Oh,
what's
she's
she
gonna tap
doing?
into you. She's
What's
gonna
this lady doing? Like, so it felt like a little like secretive, like they're checking up on me. It was
a
really cute.
Reiki intervention.
Yeah. And so yeah, and then of course the woman was like, yeah, you're doing Reiki. And actually what ended up happening is they invited me to a women's healing group, which a lot of them are Reiki masters. And that's when I met my Reiki master teacher. She's the person who leads the group. And she, gosh, how old is she now? She's 82, I think. And
Wow.
yeah, and she's been doing Reiki since the 80s. She actually got her Reiki 1 certification with Mrs. Takata. Takata learned from the lineage of Usui Reiki healing. And she lived in Hawaii for many years.
She's the OG Reiki
She's
OG.
she's the OG. She's the one who brought Reiki to the West. So
That's
she lived in
incredible.
Japan, and yeah. So that's been really great.
Wow.
And so now I'm a Reiki master now, and I can certify people. And yeah, I saw Terry just a few months ago to finally get my Reiki master. I'd been studying for it before the pandemic, and there was that giant pause, of course. And she puts her hand on my head, and she's like, you're already attuned. You already have your master, but I'll go ahead and do the
Do the
attunement.
ceremony.
You're already lit up, lady. So, but it was
That's so awesome. I mean, I think that's important too, again, with the whole linear structure versus artistic and, in just flow. There's, I think, just having the conversation about how there isn't, I mean, we often are under the impression that we need to be given permission to do what we're already doing through some sort of sanctioned ceremony or event. Nothing wrong with ceremony, nothing wrong with like a ritual to designate something that's taken place that's meaningful. But then again, that component of trust, of just trusting what's coming through, what's happening for you. You had already attuned to mastery without, this very prominent figure saying, yes, like sort of the sword on the shoulders, you've achieved this level of mastery. And I think, and this is what I help people, I help them to understand that there's not ever going, and this has been a theme in my life. There's always the preliminary, like you have arrived internally, and then there's the acknowledgement that you've arrived, and then external to that is the acknowledgement of your arrival. But first there's the self acknowledgement, right? I remember my first job as an archaeologist, and I was being paid to do it, and I couldn't believe it, because I had been a student and I had gone all over and doing it, but I didn't call myself an archaeologist. And then I got my first gig doing that. And then I was like, I'm an archaeologist. I have to like be willing to step into that, or even a hypnotherapist, or, we all get to these places of like, I am this, I'm doing this thing. This is how I'm sort of qualifying myself. And it's not that it comprises you completely, but just that you are owning this aspect of you, and you're coming out with that sort of ownership. And I think a lot of people feel like if there's someone who they admire sanctioning, yes, indeed, you are this, but there's always going to be that arrival of, I am like, what am I owning? And I am this thing now. I am stepping into this full expression of this thing.
Yeah, totally, totally. I have this really strange shadow on my face right now. That's very bizarre. Okay, that's just it. I have a piece of paper, right? I have a piece of paper that says
Right.
Master Reiki
Yeah.
certification,
Yeah.
right?
It's like, I can show you my,
Here
yeah.
you go. I'll frame it and put it on the wall, and then you can see that, and everything will be good. Yeah, I agree, and I think there's actually, if we really want to talk about how, I think that's an old model. I
It
think that's a really
is.
old model.
I
Let me see if I
agree.
could shift that shadow off my face. All right,
Is
here we
it
go.
the like sunlight coming through your window?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
coming right through my window there. Okay. Um, let's take it further. Like, school is an old model. We see it all the time, where these people who drop out from college and then start some crazy billion-dollar startup and all of that. Like, it's not necessary to have the credentials anymore. I think, if anything, sometimes what I get asked, somebody asked me, "Oh, you're a meditation teacher. What kind of meditation have you studied?" And I just
You're
kind of
like,
look at
yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Here we go. Oh, do I need a certification? Do I need a certification? And what I say to them is, I've been meditating for, gosh, I remember the first time I started meditating, I was 19. Maybe I didn't continually do it that much. And I'm 50, I'm going to be 51 in a few months, next month. And, and,
Leo.
yeah. And, my answer is, I've been meditating religiously, regularly for the past 13, 14 years. That's my teaching. That's
Mhm.
my certification.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's the putting in the time and the experience, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. So yeah, there's this whole ownership component in life. And when you get, well, it's there are different fields, right? Like, this is not to take away from the fact that like a cardiac surgeon shouldn't be qualified to do cardiac surgery. However, there is this realm of experience and knowledge that is flowing through us that we're often, in the kind of old school model, just completely disregarding. It's like, and I would imagine that in the realms where people need, like a medical, like a medical doctor or a lawyer or something, there's a component of the person who is kind of, or a musician or whatever, there's the rote, taught, theory and structure that people have access to, but then there's the soul, life force energy that's flowing through, that is having an impact. So the people who are like truly in a space of mastery, I mean, athleticism, whatever, it's like there's a level of expression that comes through that brings it to a cut above, that unless that is happening, it's just not going to be its full expression, I guess.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. There's definitely going to be some schooling involved with becoming a surgeon, right?
Yeah,
Or
things
a
like that.
medical
Yeah.
doctor, of
Yeah.
course, of course. But I
Mhm.
think in these realms, in these more esoteric realms,
Mm-hmm.
what you do, what I do.
Mm-hmm.
There's a personal learning that isn't taught in any school. Like I
Mm-hmm.
think back of,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when my parents asked me after high school, "Oh, what do you want to do? What do you want to do in college? What do you want to get into?" And I think to myself, like, there is no college anywhere that, well, now I think, but not in a high schooler's mind of 30 years ago of, I want to do esoteric healing. I want
Yeah.
to be an esoteric healer, like a yoga teacher and Reiki healer. And it's fascinating to me that, well, I suppose the journey that I took to get here was really the experience and the school that I needed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the steps that led you, from one thing to the next. I mean, we can't remove or subtract any of the experiences that we have. They're all vitally important to who we are and what we are today. I mean, I remember talking to a client who's wanting to find love. And,
Yeah.
there's this sort of, the halo effect of like, you know, I haven't made any mistakes. And it's like, are you kidding me? How the hell do you think I got here?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, how many frogs I had to kiss in order to meet my husband. And um, I think that's the thing though. I honor the choices that I made, even in the time that I was making them sometimes, like, this guy is a disaster, Nora, you really know this might break your heart. And it's like, yeah, I'm going to do it anyway. Um, and
Yeah.
I think that's what makes life really fun. I mean, it can be devastating, but I guess it's okay to be devastated in this human experience. I mean, it doesn't
Mm.
feel good, and I'm not saying sign up to be devastated, but we're gonna have these bumps in the road, and like, let's just go for it. That's my take anyway. I'm sort of like a rough and tumble soul in that way.
Well, when you say sign up, yeah, I think in some ways we probably, as light workers, I think we did sign up to have a little bit of a bumpy ride at the beginning of our lives, so that there is all these opportunities to learn. Something that I think about is, I think I heard this once about comics, you know, comedians. The reason why they're so funny typically is they've had a lot of major tragedies in their lives, and there
Mhm.
is this perspective shift that comes that is an incredible teacher. And when one can get to the other side, right, in a healthy and reasonable way, there's great insight. There's great insight. I
Yeah, resilience. That's resilience. I mean, I think the key is to get through it, get to the other side. Don't stay in it, It's like
Yeah.
if we're crossing a river that's got a crazy, flow to it, and it gets a little dicey in the middle where the flow is the most intense. It's like you don't want to just stay there and let it have its way, which is sort of Abrahamian as I'm saying it, have its way with you, although it's totally okay. You want to get to the other side, whether you sort of drift and sort of end up on the bank, or get to the other side and look at what you've accomplished. I mean, in screwing up, making mistakes, doing stupid shit, dating, ridiculously effed up people, or just being effed up yourself. Like, there's like so much juice in that. If we could just honor the fact that it's okay that that's happening, and what do we want to do about it? What, like, Scott and I were actually talking about this today, which is the perspective of, which is old school. We're just born screwed up sinners. We're just born sinners, and without a religious text that shall be named, unnamed. It could be any religious text that tells you this is the manual for living a human life, and if you don't follow it, you will be led astray. And
Yeah.
I absolutely do not agree with that at all, because I do think that we have inner guidance that is perfect for us, and that just because you did what you did in your life doesn't mean that I like, if I like, I need to cultivate the exact path and then I would come out with the same expression. Not at all. You know?
Yeah, this formulaic way of needing to live, it's absolutely necessary, I think, for a lot of people, and that's totally fine. And it's a structure that
Mhm.
helps answer a lot of unknowns in some ways. And I think
Yeah.
um,
Yep.
it's fine. It's totally absolutely fine. And I've gotten and gleaned guidance from scriptures of all kinds. I mean, yoga in itself has its own scripture of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, and that is a beautiful guide. And it is, I think, an opportunity to open into interpretation that we can each individually bring into our own lives. And for me, it was a starting point. It's the backbone,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
it's not all I do, and it's not what I do all the time. It's some of
Mhm.
what I do all the time. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, of
I love
course. I
that.
couldn't I
Yeah.
couldn't call it yoga if it wasn't that. And just talking about kind of the evolution of yoga, it's been so incredible. I started going to yoga classes before there were yoga studios. I would just go to the community center, and it was the local yoga teacher, and that was it. And now we're in this, realm of so many different yoga styles and so many different ways to approach yoga. What I really love lately is there's a lot of yoga that's all about trauma informed yoga or
Mm.
somatic yoga. And these are the things that, again, they use the backbone of Patanjali's sutras, but they're not this as formulaic. There's so many people bringing in their own way about it, and that's what I get to do. That's what I get to do with my empathic yoga. And um
Talk
each
about,
one.
yeah, talk about,
Yeah.
I mean, because I don't know that I'm like, I mean, I understand somatic work, I understand like how to work with trauma from my own lens, but tell me about how those practices work with yoga.
Well, to be quite honest, I don't know a lot about those
Mhm. Mhm.
practices,
Mhm.
only because I haven't studied them, right?
Mhm.
I can tell you some little things that I've learned. For example, trauma informed yoga. You don't want to actually say a word such as relax.
Mhm.
The word relax can be really triggering for
Mhm.
some people. If somebody's comes from a household of maybe verbal abuse, something somebody can say is relax, relax,
Right.
everything's fine, just
Someone who's
relax.
hyper vigilant.
Right. So that's not a
Mm.
word. That's not a word necessarily you want to use, or uh, even different kinds of positioning or describing positionings of the body. You want to
Mhm.
avoid certain ways of saying things. Like, you don't want to say this. I don't know. This paints a little bit of a picture, but you don't want to say to somebody, "Get on all fours."
Oh yeah,
That's
yeah.
that could
Yeah.
be triggering. That could be a submissive kind of command. So instead of
Right.
saying get on your hands and knees,
Mhm. Mhm.
uh, I usually say get on your hands and shins,
Mhm.
or get into a tabletop position.
Mhm.
These more appropriate things to say. So that's like just a little bit of what I've learned. And then I'm really fascinated by somatic
Mhm.
yoga therapy. I think in some ways, what I do already with restorative. I was working with a woman a few weeks ago, and put her in a restorative pose and started doing some Reiki on her. And she was just getting a lot of vibration in her pelvis and her lower
Mm.
back and her
Mm.
sacrum. It was hot, and it was vibrating. And she even said to me, like, is there like there's something in the room that's making the the floor vibrate? I was like, no, no,
Yeah,
we're
you.
good. You. Right. So, every restorative session is different for people. There can be a lot of massive energy movement. And so, as a a yoga teacher who I prefer to work with people one-on-one, what typically happens is just this ability to hold space, to just allow for the processing to move through,
Mhm.
and energetically stay spacious.
Mhm.
And so restorative yoga in itself, it's a powerful practice already. So
Mhm.
when I layer it with Reiki, I think restorative yoga is absolutely mind and body. It's mind
Mhm.
and body work. It's surrendering the physical body, it's surrendering the emotional body, it's surrendering the thinking body, right? But and then at the same time, Reiki is, I think, that kind of spiritual key, the thing
Mhm.
that opens, it's the lock to that door that opens more of a realm that is spiritually based, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Moving life force and love force energy through me into the client.
Mm. I
So
love
it's
that
it's the
love force, life force and love force. I love that.
it's the frequency of love. I think of that Sting song, "Love is the seventh wave."
Mhm.
It's like the beautiful wave of all creation that exists immediately, right there. It's right there. You
It
can tap
is.
into it. Right? Yeah. And then on top of that, there's the meditation, there's the mindfulness meditation. So depending on what's going on for the person, there can be guided meditation. Guided
Mhm.
meditation is a nice way to distract the ego, which is the thing that wants to be distracted, wants to be entertained at all times.
Oh
And so,
yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
I know you know that well
Oh
because you
yeah.
you teach and you work in the realm of the subconscious. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um,
So these are
yeah.
the three pillars of your empathic yoga.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. So if because we don't have a ton of time left, if a person is wanting, needing, having to work with you, um, so the three pillars, and then what is, because you have a training coming up.
Yes. Okay. So I mentioned earlier, I've been teaching for 15 years, and now I'm in this place where it's time to teach teachers. But I look at it more than just teaching yoga teachers. I want to reach out to all healers. So it says on top of my head, transformative healing techniques. So any healer, and healer is a really, I want to use the term healer as a really broad term. You think of healer, of course, you think of doctors and nurses and hypnotherapists and therapists and people like me, but healers are ultimately anyone and everyone who is striving to make this world a better place, whether it's through their
Mm.
music or through their art or through the way that they are a lawyer or an
Mhm.
accountant or
Mhm.
however that is, as long as there's no
Mhm.
harm being done.
Yeah, who wants to,
So
yeah, to contribute positively.
to
That's
contribute
great.
positively.
Mhm.
Exactly. So this is a 6-week training course where I'm teaching my methods. It's definitely experiential. I'm going to
Mm.
put you in a restorative pose and I'm going to do some distance Reiki, but and we'll do meditation too, but it's actually getting into the nuts and bolts of how to do this for yourself, how to do this for, how about your children or your
Mhm.
partner or someone in your work environment, however that feels for you. And it's a comprehensive encapsulated training, and it starts really soon. Actually, it starts next week on June 28th. So um
Awesome.
yeah,
So
yeah.
how can people find out more about that?
Very easy. You can just go to Empathic Yoga. So go to empathicyoga.com and it's in my training page there. Just click on the training tab and all the info will be there for you, how to sign up. It's all, of course, on Zoom. It's Tuesday nights. We'll start next week and then we'll skip the week of the 4th of July and then we'll continue until August 9th. And it's
Cool.
2 hours. So you want to be prepared to have the 2 hour time slot to work with me.
And
Yeah.
so how are the classes structured in that 2 hour time frame?
Well, it starts with experience. So experiential meaning you're going to take a little mini class with me and then we'll break it down. Okay? And then I'll explain why and how I did the things that I did. Each class, I love I love the structure of the class because each class is going to be about one typically common issue with most people. There'll be
Mm,
1 week we'll just do anxiety. Well, what are the techniques I use? What's a specific restorative yoga pose that's done for anxiety? What's a specific kind of meditation technique? What's a specific kind of Reiki hand positioning for anxiety?
oh, cool. Uh-huh.
Right. And
Yeah.
then the following week, what's another thing that people suffer from that's really common? What can you think of, Nora?
Stress.
Stress. Yes, absolutely. So another one just for stress.
Yeah.
Um, and then another one very common, unfortunately, in this world is neck and shoulder pain. Everyone has neck and shoulder pain. So how to use these techniques for that.
mm.
And the whole
Cool.
time, yeah. And then a large part of it too is explaining the history and the techniques of Reiki, because at the end of the class, I will attune you to be a Reiki 1. You'll have your piece of paper, your little Reiki 1 certification. So
Yay.
yay.
You can go, I'm official
You're
internally and
official.
externally.
I have love force flowing through me at all times. Yes.
That's what the attunement is. Love force flowing through you.
Well, that's what Reiki is. It's the 7th wave. It's
Oh, that's
the
cool.
frequency of love. Yeah.
That's so cool. I love that.
Mhm. And the best part, here's the best part, and I talk about this in my the webinar I did last week, but it's Reiki. What's awesome about Reiki, so if you think about it, if you're channeling the 7th wave, right, we'll call it that, we're channeling the 7th wave, and it moves through you and to the person that is receiving it, you're going to get that love energy. That's going
Oh,
to be healing
sure.
for you. So
Yeah.
it's a very multi-purpose kind of healing technique. The energy heals you. Running energy, running Reiki consistently is going to be healing for the practitioner as
Right.
well.
Like what a concept, the healer being healed simultaneously as the healee. Like they're both like healer and healee, because, in the way that the current mainstream health infrastructure is set up, it's depleting to the healer, it's
Yeah.
not nourishing to the healer. And so I love the potential for what this can offer, because I think your broadening of healership allows people to see healership in themselves, whereas they may know that they have this tendency to just be like a loving, kind person and want good for the planet, but maybe not have given themselves permission to see themselves in terms of being a healer. And so that's
Yeah.
you're bringing that to the table, which is awesome.
Yeah, and I think and that you're touching upon something that's really important, that absolutely, even as a Reiki healer, there's techniques you have to do to keep yourself kind of energy free of
Mm-hmm.
what does empathic mean and what does
Mm,
empathy mean. The
mm,
empathy is the ability to feel into somebody else's pain or happiness or whatever it is, and to learn there is this boundary created that you can be in another's energy, and that's an intuitive practice and an intuitive expansion that can happen with these practices. And these shadows are
finding
so funny. Yeah. And
you're
then
doing your shadow work.
woo, do your shadow work, check it out. So like I'm just gonna lean over here. That's what I'm
Yeah,
gonna do.
I'll do it with you.
So it it's a combination of, sure, you're getting healed, you want that healing through these practices, but also as a healer, what are the ways that that and this is part of the training, is how to release those energies once you've been with the client in a way that is uh
Releasing, you don't have to
supporting.
carry, yeah, you don't have to carry
Right.
that. Yeah, yeah.
Releasing that energy, but then supporting, and then absolutely supporting you later. So yeah.
That's super
Mm,
important. Well, I'm
mm.
really excited for you to fill this so that more people can get access to this work. And I'd like to take the training too when it lines up.
I would
So,
love that.
oh my God,
Yes.
that'd be so much fun. It might be a little distracting. We probably like shooting the breeze during the training, and Rhonda's like, Nora,
I would love,
be a
but no,
good
that makes it
student.
so fun. Have your feedback. Yeah. So definitely there's going to be another one happening. I'll go to Scotland, come back in September, and then take it up again and do another course then. But of
Awesome.
course, I would rather everyone join in for the
Totally.
summer
Well,
course.
we want to create huge buzz for you. So we're running out of time. And so what would you like to share to kind of conclude this?
What would I like to share to conclude this?
What feels unaddressed?
I think I'm going to put my teacher hat on and say that if this is something that piques your interest, whether or not you join in for my training session or not, what I would love to impart is that it begins with meditation. You don't have to do yoga, you don't have to do Reiki. You can just sit quietly every day. And meditation takes many forms. It can be people watching, it can be reading a book, it can be going for a walk and choosing to unplug, not listening to music or talking to your friend, or if there's someone with you, but taking the time every day to be in stillness in whatever way that looks like. It's a form of meditation, and to get into a habit of it every day.
Yeah. Find something that works for you, right? That's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, you can just feel the calmness radiating from you. So people are going to be like, ah. So I
Thanks, Nora.
appreciate, yeah, thank you. I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your cutting edge creation and bringing that work into the world. And I'm so glad I get a chance to be your friend, and I love you. Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Nora. I love you so much. I thank you for, I know it was a little rocky start to your morning, and I appreciate that we were able to figure it out
Oh,
and do this
we had to
today.
Yoda it. We had to Yoda and just do. We just had to do. It's all good. I feel replenished and like it's all great. And we'll have to have you back on the show too.
I would love that. I would absolutely love that.
Maybe after Scotland.
Oh my gosh. I think I might have a few stories to
Yeah,
share
you might
after
have a few
Scotland.
stories. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, my dear. Well, until next time, everyone, thank you for joining us on this experience. And as always, feel free to subscribe or share this with your friends, and then add comments if you want to talk, you want to hear certain topics, or if you have comments directly to what's been talked about here with Ranya, I'll be happy to make sure that she knows so that she can get in on the conversation. But until then, enjoy your experience of life. Mwah.
Bye, Nora.
Bye.